Sup everybody, this is Karak with Xseed, and it's my continuing mission to bring you reviews for completed games that aren't 2 minutes long or filled with sponsored bullcrap. Today I bring to you the review for Fate Extella, the Umbral Star, which takes the Fate anime and overall franchise, throws it into a modified Dynasty Warriors type hack and slash, overclocks it like the entire game world's liquid cooled, and then injects enough what the hell into it that you're gonna think that you leapt into a swimming pool filled with LSD. So in that way, I guess it pretty much channels the fiction perfectly. Let's see if amped up Dynasty Warriors gameplay can meet this title halfway, and if Xseed can bring Fate's uniqueness to the consoles. Fate is out January 17th for PS4. As always, if you like the video, maybe subscribe. So here's my review for Fate Extella, the Umbral Star, causing sheer pain with game names, Dynasty Warriors' ludicrous speed, and a story that makes Matrix seem like a goddamn pictogram. Graphics are up first. Building on the typical Dynasty Warriors style of title we're all accustomed to, which is throwing as many bad guys at you as there are degrees on a compass and hoping it all works out, Fate actually does well at hiding some of the weaknesses inherent in finding the world's largest 3D printer and chucking out likewise colored enemies at top speed into the game world. And it does that a couple ways. The first is, it's a visual treatise on color theme and work. That is to say, it's like a goddamn Crayola-colored black hole where somehow light taught itself to escape. There's an almost gravitational pull to inject anything and everything within the game world, from the flashing Matrix-looking doorways to the supernova that goes off whenever your characters package certain death into special combos and ship them into enemies' faces at UPS's new patented speed, death. Let's be honest, most Dynasty Warriors games have a love affair with Gears of War color palettes, while usually not being that drab. And though each game offers something unique within its world or playstyles, only a couple have really gone this route as separating themselves via their visuals. And I have to say, after playing it, Fate is one of them, and I love it for that. Now, the second way it does this is the sheer speed of play. It's got speed on top of speed, like Wile E. Coyote taping a rocket to a rocket to a rocket, thinking that that'll make it go faster, but here, somehow, it does. The game at times is many steps above Dynasty or Samurai Warriors, and the speed coupled with the color does wonders to really differentiate itself from any other title in this genre. Additionally, it actually packs in some pretty good designs that fit the fiction, because remember, this is considered a standalone title. And yes, this is a world where arguably armor and coverage mean nothing, and if everyone isn't wearing stockings, what kind of game would Fate be? No, seriously, I half expected Nameless to trot out wearing a pair, but no such luck. When it comes to offering something unique across the board, Fate actually gets it pretty well. And aside from transitory drops below 60 FPS, it actually for the most part ran at that, though I did see the occasional drop when things got hot and questionably dressed heroes brought down special attacks like summoning neutron stars onto a legion of unsuspecting enemies. Overall though, always playable. Now as a package, I absolutely love the look and feel of Fate. Yes, I would like the low-level characters to have some differentiation in their colors, and that hasn't happened yet, but you know what? This is a completely saccharine-colored, cranked-out insanity style of title, and I think what they were aiming for is what they hit. Sound, music, and voice.
見ている玉座に世があることでレガリアはやはりともあれだ
我が神明で答えましょ
うシステム更新
しかしここにたどり着くまで
華麗に決めるぞ
カカよくぞ参った存分にし合おうではないか
この運命そなたと共に開くがよい
And of course, sound is up first, and it's average. I mean, it's channeling the anime, which means its entire sound set is overall higher and far more saccharine than most other titles, and there's very little aim for anything realistic, and instead it sort of goes for a kinetic experience that's high in the frequency range, and it did that really well. While most games like this lose you in busy crowds, and that did happen here, for the most part the sounds are still where you would expect, and various movesets certainly have their own tonal themes, like the specials that you can pull off that thrust your characters into a virtual planescape to perform a series of quick attacks on specific enemies, and the tone changes within those. You know, it's not going to be for everybody, but I'd say, as a whole, pretty good to average. Music. Okay, being honest, this completely surprised me because I found myself liking it even though it's all over the place. I really couldn't stop myself from enjoying it, even when the game went from short, almost childlike piano solos, easy on complexity, to straight up electronic, back to something almost reminiscent of, I guess, jazzy jingles. It is everywhere, but if you listen closely, there are some connections between tracks, and thematically, they absolutely nailed the locations. I mean, there's even oddly unforgettable elevator-style music in some of the menus. It's not going to be for everyone, but really, Fate already isn't for everyone. For me, something about its completely chaotic presentation with that underlying current worked, and when the battle gets hot and heavy, the themes are still incredibly well done. So for me, the music was actually pretty good. Voice. Okay, so this is hit and miss depending on what you're expecting from a translation job. It's not at all dubbed, so despite waiting, the only thing the West gets is translated text. And sadly, sometimes the subs don't play, like in battle special moves, resulting in characters sounding like they are really saying something important, only to not have any fucking clue what they're talking about. From the looks of things, it probably involved fire an enemy's face and a pulled muscle, but I will never actually know. Now, for folks wanting a dub, it's not here, while the subs are actually done incredibly well and are almost shockingly light in terms of grammatical errors. That completely surprised me. So somebody else who speaks native Japanese can tell me how this worked out when it comes to voices. Overall, though, it didn't bother me that they weren't there, but I think as an option it would have been great to have them. And of course, all that brings us to gameplay, and a bit about the story. Brace yourselves. In the past, there was a war on the moon called the Holy Grail War, meaning Indiana Jones was probably way off. The world is now ruled by a massive supercomputer named Moon Cell Automaton, and you take characters out and try to take over digital pieces of that world against others, through 3 distinct stories of a larger tale. Basically, it's like every Saturday night. You wake up in some chick's arms, can't remember Friday night, but you know it involved at least one good fight. And that's the premise, rinse and repeat. Or it would be if Fate didn't have the same love affair with the cutscenes that it had with the main character. Be aware that where some of these games cut their stories short, Fate does no such thing, imparting a short novella amount of data on you. Now, while I didn't have a problem with it, others may, and it really does actually impact the gameplay a little bit, making it feel a little stunted when maybe you want to go from battle to battle to battle, and instead there's large cutscenes you have to see. Now, they are skippable, or you can skip to any choices that may occur within them, but it can be a little confusing if you do. If you don't, we're easily talking hours of cutscenes here. But once you do go out, it's cut and kick and slice and dice and punch and puree and shooting, stabbing, and fireballing enemies into oblivion in numbers that approach Rapture levels. Now, while other games in this series are quick, and some quicker than others, Fate is absolutely a slick, supernatural speed fest. It's like a fucking ice rink of death, with each area packed to the goddamn gills with bad guys, and you slice them through them at speeds approaching laughable. And I know this might bother some people. I know that I had some folks checking it out with me, and they were a bit perturbed by the chaos, because not only is it insanely fast, you're also neck deep in bad guys, and everyone's seen who can light the goddamn atmosphere on fire the quickest. Now, luckily for me, the control's pretty spot on, though I did notice a lack of a mini-boss lock-on, but that was something that sort of went away as I got accustomed to the speed. Now, combat in these games is notoriously simple, and it stays that way here, with a series of 2-button combo strings for most of your combat attacks, and a couple special moves that give you insane power for a limited time, transform you in some way, or add the ability to switch between characters mid-battle. Now, depending on the difficulty, you could find yourself challenged by enemies that absolutely can destroy you if you're not watching out. In fact, on the higher difficulties, it can actually be the normal guys, but in the normal and lower difficulties, it's basically mini-bosses that flood the game worlds as you go from small battle zone to battle zone, taking them over and hoping they don't get retaken by the AI while you're trying to race willy-nilly to some main objective. While that game loop pretty much continues through all the combat, you're not always going to be fighting. You can go back to your home. Depending on which of the stories you're playing, it could be anything from a nice little royal room to what looks like a geisha house or otherwise. And here you can take a couple actions, like using casts, which are basically equipment tied to the D-pad. The higher you go and the higher the level, the better the item, and the more options they may have and the more directions. For example, you could have the ability to raise attack and defense with a push of the D-pad right and left with one cast, but you might be giving up the ability to switch out characters because another cast has the right D-pad attached to that activity. Pretty cool stuff, not super strategic, but very enjoyable. Here also, if you have them, you can attach skills to your characters. Now, these are fairly mundane, things like fire damage, add bonuses to hit, maybe kill normal enemies with one hit. What really pays off, though, is understanding stacking them to maximize things like enemy item drops and so forth. It's cool, but depending on your game style, it could be almost completely worthless to you, or at least something you wouldn't see very much. Sadly, not everything is colorful hotties wearing stockings and suggesting pleasant nights, which actually happens a disturbing number of times in the game. First off, the level structure itself is actually a little bit bothersome. While zooming from one small battle zone to the other and trying to balance offense attacks and defending locations you already took over, it's actually pretty goddamn cool. It can feel very disjointed, and particularly on harder difficulties, it can feel very grindy because your AI isn't as good, let's be honest, as the bad AI. Add to that the fact that they mimic a technical diagram of a CPU for the map means that sometimes the map itself can be a little bit confusing which junction and door to use to get to a particular spot, or even the level sometimes with where the doors are located. Now, as you guys know, I play a game on every difficulty. Even on the harder difficulties, though, the AI here is not really improved. It just hits harder, which, as any veteran of these types of games will tell you, is pretty much bog standard. Only enemies known as aggressors really do much on the normal difficulties, and that means that most everyone else is there to push around. But that's okay, because that's the loop of gameplay here when you really think about it. Kill the weak people to get power, to kill the mid-tier guy, to get more power, to kill the main guy, and to travel around the battle map. But more offensive action from the enemies would have actually been nice for me. That being said, the game's strength really lies in unique characters that you can play in the story or free battle modes, and there's a lot to actually play here, even though technically there have been other titles prior that had more modes. This one, with its multiple story arcs and stuff, there was a lot there. And that, of course, brings us to fun factor. Now, this is the closest any of us are going to feel to being Stone Cold Steve Austin, throwing on a plaid schoolgirl outfit, and then kicking the shit out of a bunch of people and not getting arrested for it. That's plain and simple what this game offers. It also offers an insane amount of fiction. Now, that's going to be a little bit different than some of the prior titles, certainly the parent titles themselves, where they might have a cutscene or two, but certainly nothing like this. This game absolutely delivers on its fiction. That's not saying I wouldn't have liked the sameness of the enemies to not be switched up, because randomly unleashing 4-foot-tall Godzilla-level powers onto enemies' heads can feel a little bit like cutting grass so that you can find your old toy in the backyard versus really taking out peons in an army. But you know what? Such is life. So as you guys know, I rate games on a buy, wait for a sale, rent, or never touch it again rating scale. This is actually a buy at $50, which is its price is $10 off from what I can see. It does offer some unique things to this genre that we haven't seen, or that we've seen attempted but not really come together like this. It has its issues, yes, but it's got enough characters to play, 20 plus, and just a boatload of things to do. It doesn't have as many modes maybe as some of the other games have, but I think it offers something incredibly unique within the genre, and certainly as a fan of the genre, it's something I'm enjoying. So anyway, that's it for me. Hope you guys liked the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Maybe check out the Amazon affiliates, Twitter, or Patreon. That is absolutely how you guys can help the channel continue to save you guys money and deliver to you information. If you dislike the video, give it a thumbs down. Peace out, and enjoy the rest of your week.